Hey, boss. Hey, Spider-Man Miller. Wait, why are you in the closet? Oh, I was just getting some things together, but I've noticed you haven't been active for a while. Yeah, I don't know, man. Well, you said you want to get the Harrier review out as your first review, but we're already in February. Is everything all good? I guess I'm just waiting on Talon Mags for the Harrier review. Why do you need Talons? I don't know. I guess it's just me wanting to, test it with those proper mags instead of just the mag, even though I know I should probably do it with what I already have. No, I get it, man. I guess consistency is always a good thing, but never mind. I understand, man. To be honest, without Talon mags, I'm not really sure what else we can do, if I'm being honest. Well, I do have another option if you're open for it. What's your idea? Here, catch. So, you know, we haven't done this yet. It's a brand new blaster. Do you want to cue that intro? You got it, boss. What up, dude, bro? Spider-Avenger Miller. I apologize for how long I've been gone. I've been trying to do something with the Harrier, but I'm still testing with that thing. But instead, I had the bright idea the other day. I was like, huh, I haven't gone for too long. What's the best way to start off 2025? And it's perfect. But we are looking at the X-Shot Fury X, X-Shot's newest Pro Blaster, a top prime bullpup blaster that honestly has started to become the best blaster of 2025. So let's get into it. Included is the blaster itself, darts, magazine, and instructions. We got an external overview starting up at the front. There is no N-Strike barrel lug. This is an X-Shot blaster. However, the barrel is actually kind of unique. So I'm thankful because it is a metal barrel. I know you can't see that. However, this barrel can accept scar barrels. So if you have the Worker or Dart Zone ones, they go in perfectly. But you do have to put, at least I know, the Dart Zone one and I believe the Worker one upside down, or I guess I was proven wrong. But to get a better seal, put it upside down. But it does also work with the Dart Zone P-Car. I believe you just mostly have to take this piece out. And to be honest, it actually does not look that bad. But a scar barrel will really help you with your accuracy because this thing is pretty accurate on its own, but having that scar barrel is going to be so precise. Up above, we have this like weird switch. It's a 3-position switch. However, none of us know what it is. So if anyone has this and they figure that out, comment that down below. But Brickosaurus227 and I have been trying to figure out what it is. X-Shot, if you're watching, can you please message me and see what that is? Down below, we do have the trigger. The trigger pull is actually pretty nice, and this blaster does have slam fire, which means you can hold down the trigger and don't worry about this. Prime back the blaster, and then when you push forward, it fires. Now, it just freaking was loud right there, but ironic enough, this blaster does have an air restrictor, so you can fire that safely, which is unique. But of course, for safety, and also because I don't like dry firing stuff, as you could tell, it's got a pretty good air seal, and I like that. Now getting down to the grip on this blaster is comfy. It feels just like the long shot, even though it's a thumb hole stock. But even with the thumb hole area, it's actually pretty comfy. Down below, we do have a kind of X-Shot pick rail. This is the same similar Picatinny rail to the Dart Zone attachments, but it can fit some airsoft attachments, so just your mileage will vary with that. Back behind, we do have a magazine release. Now, this blaster has 2 different magazine releases. It's got this one up here, and it's got one in the back. The advantage of a bullpup is to have a very small blaster with a long barrel, and if you are familiar with bullpups, this action is very easy to remember. However, this one really just depends. This one, quickly drops it, which is really awesome. And then the one back here is just kind of more if you're trained for that. But I personally like just gravity dropping it because it's such a cool feeling. Up above, we got the priming handle to prime. You do that. The prime itself, ironic enough, is very smooth. Now it is ratchety, so if you mess up like right there, it gets stuck, so you have to complete the cycle. But honestly, I'm okay with that. It's so smooth, it's comfy, and I really prefer it. It's really nice. And then we do have another pick rail at the top, and then back behind we do have the iron sight, which corresponds to the rear iron sight. Reverse that. But the sight picture is actually pretty good, but you're not really going to be shouldering this and looking down the sights. And I don't really see you pointing this out as much. You're going to kind of want to keep it here. That's the level of comfort that I have seen. But again, your mileage will vary. This is a very unique blaster, and we'll go over it a little more in my opinion. And then back behind, we do have the magazine well. To remove the magazine, like I showed earlier, you would just use the 2 magazine releases, and included is X-Shot's, of course, typical half-length dart magazine. The only difference now is it's pink, which or kind of a purple. The light will kind of show the color of that. But something I do find incredibly funny about this magazine is I guess some people thought that this reminds them a lot of the 18-round Talon mag because I believe it is the exact same size, but these are only 15-rounders. Yet you could technically shove 18 in here, but it gets really bunched up at the bottom. So they decided to put this little marker in there to, I'm not kidding, like literally stop you from loading in more than 20 mags or 20 darts. And it's funny, but it works well. And the magazine feeds well, and it's a decent quality, but I still just recommend Talon mags. And this magwell is compatible with Talon mags, Dart Zone mags, but come on, we all know the best mags. Get a Talon, it's better, which I will eventually get soon. However, the magwell itself is pretty nice, and there's a actual slight flare, not like a full flare like the Harrier. The Harrier has such an amazing flared magwell. This is slightly flared, but it's still a little complicated. But once you practice enough, you get good at it. But it takes practice because this kind of thing takes a lot of practice. Because again, it's slightly flared, just not fully. So you sometimes don't even have to look, but then sometimes you do. That is an external overview of the X-Shot Fury X. Now going over the cosmetics, it's really cool. Like the paint design that they have on this is really cool. They've started to do this now, this nice little blue and white scheme, which I actually really like. And again, the ergonomics on it is, the blaster is really well balanced, but again, it depends on what you're using it for. I don't personally think this is meant to be like a shouldered primary, because essentially you're holding it like this, and that's not really comfy to do. But it's also not it's sized like a pistol, but it is not a pistol. So I can't really see you using it like this. However, the blaster itself, I think, really works as something from the hip. And really the only gripe I have on this, spoiler, is that I wish this had a sling loop, because I could definitely see this on a 1-point sling as a secondary instead of my primary. However, this obviously can be used as a primary. And the dummy, I forgot about the safety. So the safety is underneath. It prevents you from pulling the trigger. Flick that forward. There we go. Sorry, I'm a little rusty. But why don't I shut up and why don't I show you this thing firing? Slam fire. Now shooting red Warper Gen 3 Half-Life darts. Overall, firing the blaster was really fun. It is a very fun blaster to use. But a few notes about my testing. First, accuracy was very broad. I was not expecting it to be that inaccurate without a scar barrel. And again, halfling darts are pretty accurate on their own, but sometimes they need a serious help of a scar barrel. And apparently, the X shot darts, from what I saw, were not the most accurate. And again, I was shooting this kind of freehand, so that could have been a layer in that, but I saw those darts flying left, right, up. And again, I'm not saying that's the fault of the blaster. I think that is mostly just due to the darts themselves because I saw a lot more consistency out of my Worker Gen 3 darts. However, I do recommend if you ever do run this, run it with a scar barrel because it's going to be a lot more accurate. Then next, the priming as I went along, as you saw, kept kind of seizing up. There's not really a way I can show that here. But during my firing demo, the problem with a ratcheting system is, yes, it leads to a very smooth, crisp prime. However, if you run that too fast, there's sometimes when it'll lock up or it just loses its track. So then you have to redo it in order to get it to work. So that's kind of not really like a big minor gripe, but it is something to at least go over. But I threw the X-shot darts over my chronograph, and with those darts, I was getting an average of about 127 feet per second. Now, the blaster did advertise that I shot over 140, but the X-shot darts are kind of a little inconsistent. They're a little bit better than Ember darts, but they're not the most consistent thing. However, when I threw Worker Gen 3 darts over my chronograph, I did get 145 feet per second. So that is at least great. And of course, Worker Gen 3 darts are slowly becoming just really great darts. I just wish they were a little more durable. I've already broken a few of them. But that is all the objective information I can provide on this blaster. Not in my personal opinion. Overall, I love this thing. This thing, yes, I did have hiccups. Yes, I did have a few malfunctions, but it's $15. I can't understate that enough. It's $15 for a smooth prime, great performing, pretty decently accurate. Again, we use a scar barrel, but just a blaster that is $15 that works this well. Like, dude, this is an amazing product. I'd actually probably use this over an Aeon X, and I love the Aeon X. But again, my only gripe with this blaster is if it had a sling attachment point, I would totally use this as my secondary. I would throw this on my sling, throw it to my side, and whenever my main blaster was going down, I would just rack this off and just freaking, this blaster is awesome. Again, it's not really a blaster that you want to shoulder. This is more of a blaster that you want to keep at least at your hip or about right here. But overall, it's amazing. Now, I do have a few complaints, and these are very minor, but it's mostly just about like what you saw in the firing demo. The accuracy, again, is very broad, but like I stated, if you put in a Worker or a Dart Zone Scar Barrel in here, the accuracy is fixed, and it does drop performance just a little bit, but I'd rather have a more consistent dart than a dart that shoots too hard that it flies off into another direction. And then the only other gripe is, again, I wish this had a sling attachment, just because, dude, it would be so amazing with a sling point attachment. And the last really complaint I have is, again, the ratcheting prime is awesome, but again, you might not want to run it too fast, otherwise it will lock up. But again, it's not that bad. But I can forgive that because, again, it's $15, so I can't really complain too very much. But now comes to the question to buy or not to buy. If you're in the market for a pro level blaster, this is probably the best one you could start with. Now, again, I do think the Nexus Pro X is a good better buy if you're looking for a primary, but this is an amazing way to get into the hobby and get to starting in here because again, it's $15 and you're getting 140 feet per second on an average, which is amazing. Now, if you're looking for a primary, I do not think this is it. I'd recommend stuff like the Nexus Pro X, the Game Face Tryon, the Worker Harrier, just because those are more built to be a better primary. This is kind of in the vague place of a secondary. I would not say this is a sidearm at all, even though it is sized like one. I do not want to pull this thing off my hip because it's a pretty big blaster to put on your hip or on your leg. But I think this is an amazing secondary if you get a 3D printed attachment to put a sling at least back here. You could put one up here, but I personally do not like slings on the front of my blaster. I like them right in the back. If I could have a sling point, like literally like this screw port right here, if this was a sling point, I could just snap my sling in here, throw it to my back, and this would be an amazing secondary blaster. But again, it just kind of depends on, are you looking for a primary or are you looking for a good secondary? Because if you're looking for a secondary, the Aeon Pro X is a little bit more expensive and a little bit more higher quality, but $15 cannot be beat. I'm sorry. It cannot be beat. It works pretty well once you get the kinks worked out, and it's really fun. So that's all I have for you today, Dude Bros. If you want to buy this thing, I go to Target because I believe that is only where they're being sold. But I highly do recommend you check this out. Now, again, keep in mind, if you're looking for a primary, I do not recommend this. However, if you're looking for a good secondary, buy this over the Aeon X. I cannot believe I'm saying that, but it's $15. How can that be beat? Great job, X Shot. Much love, blast on, and stay tactical.